Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Smarter Campus podcast, where we are changing education one conversation at a time. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Dr. Tawnya Means, Assistant Dean for Educational Innovation at the Geese College of Business at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. With over 15 years of experience driving innovation in teaching and learning, Tawnya blends her expertise in instructional design, educational technology, and faculty development to shape the future of business education. Tawnya, thank you so much for being here. If you could just give another introduction of yourself, we can get into it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for inviting me, Zach. I'm happy to participate in this. As you mentioned, my background is in educational technology, instructional design, faculty development, and now I'm really heavily involved in a lot of things associated with AI, especially as AI gives us opportunities to engage learners, to make the experience a better learning experience, and to help faculty and instructors to learn how to use these tools in meaningful ways to impact their students.
Yeah, well, I'm lucky to have you here. Kind of the first question I want to jump into is, as I mentioned in your intro, 15 years of experience leading this tech space in business education. How did you first dive into AI?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. So if I could back up just a little bit before
Yeah,
AI,
yeah,
AI has been around for a really long time, but in the last 2 years, we've seen so much explosion in the conversations around AI. But perhaps it would be helpful to step back just a little bit and talk
yeah,
about some of my other work before AI or before generative AI.
yeah, please do.
My background is in information science, learning technologies. My PhD is in learning system or is around learning systems design and development. And so I've been engaged in this space of how to use technology in meaningful ways in both the K-12 and the higher ed space for all of my academic career and into my professional career. And as I've been working with programs that are associated with large scale online innovation, um, you know, AI and generative AI has just brought about new ways for us to expand what we do, expand our scale, and especially to make the learning experience high quality, engaging, and really just a better learning experience.
Yeah. So, like, how did AI come onto the scene at your job, right? Like, what was the first kind of touch point?
Well, heavily engaged in the world of online learning, in the world of teaching and learning, in the world of trying to help faculty to be able to manage um, their teaching experiences at scale. Um, my day-to-day life is just immersed in this world. And as we saw the announcement of AI, at first everyone was like, well, this is going to change everything because everybody's going to be cheating. And that was a huge piece of everybody's conversation was how can I make my assignments AI proof? How can I keep my students from using these tools to cheat? And so initially, that was where I was exploring it was, well, how can I help faculty alleviate their concerns, mitigate the risks, and to feel more comfortable in teaching their courses without worrying so much about the academic integrity space. But as I started exploring that and I started recognizing that's such a minute piece of this conversation. There's so much more to it than just how do I stop cheating? And initially, we had so many people who were saying, well, I can keep them from cheating by taking a picture of my question and putting it into Canvas as a picture because AI can't read pictures. I was like, okay, that's really short-sighted because you're going to spend all of this effort creating a mechanism to keep doing what you were doing but to try and circumvent any generative AI solution. And what I started recognizing is we need to be thinking bigger than that, but we also need to be helping people recognize not to waste time and energy on temporary fixes and to start looking at, well, what is this really telling us? This is really telling us that if your assessment can be answered by a generative AI solution, let's change the assessment. And so that
I mean,
shaped the conversation in a different path.
yeah. Okay. So off of that, like as you're leading this educational innovation at Geese, how do you really strike the balance between like encouraging faculty to adopt technologies, but like also ensuring that they feel supported and not overwhelmed?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that has always been kind of key to my thinking is the idea that we have in most of our faculty and instructors a deep expertise and prior preparation to be really good at one thing. And most of the time, that one thing they're really good at is not teaching with technology. It is their background, it is their financial expertise or their accounting expertise or their management expertise, all of the things that they've gotten their PhDs in. That's where we need them to be experts because that's what they're researching and they're teaching. We don't need them to figure out what is the latest tool to do X, Y, and Z. How can I implement it into the class? How can I ensure that my students can be successful with it? How do I manage if students are having trouble with it? That's where another set of experts can come in. And that other set of experts does have that expertise. They are trained in pedagogy, they are trained in technology, they do daily keep their knowledge of that information up to date. And so the idea of pairing learning designers and support specialists with faculty, it's not a new idea, but it's one that makes a whole lot of sense in this world. And so that's kind of the direction I started leading is let's pair people. Let's, make these connections and let's find these solutions in ways to help keep the faculty from feeling like, well, I'm not a technology expert. I don't know the technology. I don't know the software or the tools or and I can't handle both. And so if we kind of think about it as a pairing, as a partnership, then we're able to be more successful in helping both sides to be able to realize what the potential is.
Yeah, so I kind of want to dive into that a little further because one thing I would like to say is like a lot of the people I've interviewed on this show have kind of been smaller universities. So like you have a whole other monster to really tackle with having such a large population of students and faculty. So you're saying you're like, are you hiring outside technology experts to come into your university to help with these things?
So the teaching and learning team in Geese is specific to the College of Business. The University of Illinois itself has a Center for Technology Innovation as well, CITL.
Yep.
And they're more available to the entire university. But in the Geese College of Business, there's a teaching and learning team that started in 2015, 16 as I think it was like 1 3/4 of a person. I mean, it was like very not a person, but an FTE, if we were to say it
Yeah.
that way. But it was a very small group, and their mission was to help build this online scalable degree program with the faculty teaching and the staff supporting. And so it started as that small group, and then it grew over as we have thousands of students in the online programs now. We have close to 60 or so staff that's their job. They're helping to build videos, they're helping to build course sites, they're helping to integrate technology, they're helping to support the courses while they're running live. It's the synchronous component of it, the recorded component of it. So this partnership idea started very small. Any institution could do it, but grew over time to be able to support the number of students and the number of faculty who are involved.
I mean, that's super cool. I mean, I haven't got to talk to someone that's dealt with because I can't imagine the amount of moving pieces that are happening every day. So, I mean, you're struggling like you're dealing with implementation, new technology, all that stuff. How have like what steps have you taken to kind of educate people on security, environmental impact, like what happens when you use these things like generative AI?
So I think that's still, I don't want to say TBD. It's kind of
Yeah.
like we're building that as we go.
Yeah.
Certainly within the University of Illinois, the university has put together a task force and it's called the Generative AI Solutions Hub. It has people who are coming in from all different spaces around the campus. We're looking at teaching and learning, we're looking at research, we're looking at administrative operations, and in all cases, we're looking at all of the things you said. What are the privacy considerations? What are the ways in which we ensure that we're using these in ethical ways? How do we establish what good practices are? How do we even know how people are using it? University of Illinois is a very decentralized campus with lots of people doing different things. Not everybody's always aware of everything that's happening. And so serving kind of as a hub to be able to connect people across the campus, but also taking kind of that perspective of, what are the risks? How could we be mitigating those risks? What are the risks of not doing this? What are the challenges that we're facing? What are the potentials? And so I don't know that I could speak and say, we've got it all figured out. We know what
Yeah.
we're doing because this is still so new to so many people. In fact, most of the places where I see a lot being done in AI, it is individuals. It is the Ethan Mollocks or the Jose Bowens or the Jules White at Vanderbilt. It's the people who are like they're leading the charge as individuals, and their institutions are kind of brought along for the ride.
Yeah.
Um, there aren't very many institutions that have figured out this is the strategy we need to take, this is the direction we're going, and this is how we're going to get there. And we're going to use the community around us to kind of move in that direction, the
Mm,
grassroots piece, but it's
yeah.
married with the strategy. And so I think it's new enough that there aren't a lot of people who've figured out how to make it, but it's very important, and it is critical that we do figure this out, that we figure out what are the guardrails we need to have in place. How do we ensure that everyone has an appropriate level of literacy around AI? How do we ensure that some people are building competencies as it relates to their specific discipline? And then even in some cases, we need people who they're developing the ability to build things and the ability to create new things. I mean, something new is coming out with AI every day. I mean,
Yeah.
just if you don't think it does what you want it to do, just wait. Tomorrow it will. It's an exciting time, but it's also a time where we need to not just be running off the cliff without thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And one thing that I think you said that's really cool is kind of like acknowledging that, right? I think that's an issue that a lot of teachers kind of deal with is that like I don't feel like I'm ready. Like I don't feel like I'm ready and I already feel like I'm 2 years behind. And I
Yeah.
think what you said, I mean, I love that. It's that like I'm acknowledging that I don't know. And that's like something that we all need to do because you can't be expected to know. So one thing kind of when I was doing my homework before this, like Geese School of Business is really known for innovation. I saw that you guys have done some incredible things in the past, forever, but especially in the recent years. Like, what's something that's kind of exciting for you that AI has kind of helped with that innovation in the future?
Wow. Well, maybe I could give just one example.
Yeah,
We have, so there's a requirement from regulations that have been put in place through the Department of Education, Department of Justice, that we have content that is accessible at a specific level that is actually really challenging to meet, WCAG double A standard. And it's saying that basically every piece of content that you have has to be accessible to all learners, regardless of their needs.
yeah,
And that means that every website, every document, every video, every form, I mean, anything that you're trying to access, it needs to be easily accessible to anyone. And if we think about who has the responsibility for making that content accessible, um, a lot of times that responsibility comes on to the faculty member.
yeah,
It's you're teaching the course, so you need to make sure that your students can access this content. But the skill level and knowledge that's required in order for anyone to make that content fully accessible requires a lot of training, a lot of knowledge of how to use tools such as, I mean, it's built into some of our tools. But for example, if you build a Word document and you make all of your headings just increased font size and bold, they look like headings to you, but when a screen reader reads them, they don't look any different than the content that's in the rest of the document. So to make that accessible requires either the knowledge of you as the creator to use the heading label, or it requires remediation after the fact to be able to go back and fix it. Well, that's a huge workload. It's a huge time commitment, and it's a training issue that is not easily resolved. So in order to meet these requirements, they're required by April of 2026, which is coming up very quickly. All content needs to be remediated. But first, we have to recognize, we have to audit to find out what the content is and how it needs to be fixed. So if you think about the vast amount of time and energy that would be required, first of all, to do the audit, and second of all, to correct everything, and third, to bring in the people with the right expertise to be able to do it, we're never going to get it done. In fact, we mapped it out and it would be like November of 2028 before we even completed the audit of all of our online content. That's no remediation, just audit. We have a faculty member who has worked on a tool that can automatically correct 99% of the errors in minutes, not only identify them, but correct them. And the hardest kind of challenge associated with this is, let's say you need to take video, you need to have all of the video not only transcribed accurately, but you also need the video to have what's called audio descriptions. So if you have any kind of visual in the video, it needs to be described in that transcript and verbally. Well, those have to be generated. And typically a company that does that kind of work will charge like $40 a minute. So if you get a 6-minute video, you're paying 40 times 6, and that's magnified times the thousands of videos that you have. It's an impossible task when you think about it financially and workload and everything. But his tool that he created will actually go in and create audio descriptions using AI that accurately and in beautiful language describe the visual in the video, and it just inserts it in. And the player then can allow it to play it with it or without it. So everybody gets the same video. If I, as a fully seeing person, would like to hear the audio description, I just click the button and I can hear it too. So that's an amazing innovation that leverages AI, uses technology, reduces the workload, can accomplish something that has to be done, it's required, but does it in a way that doesn't overwhelm everyone and require us to hire a bunch of temporary staff to go in and do things that they're not even very good at doing, and they need to be trained and all of that. So it really is an amazing innovation and something that I'm very proud of.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a wonderful business as well. So I was like listening, that's crazy. And I think it highlights a really interesting point about the ed tech field as a whole, right? Because I mean, kind of what's happening right now, I mean, it's always happened in the past, but like technology is forcing the hand of education to kind of make a decision, right? Like OpenAI, these big companies, they're kind of like, hey, we totally screwed up the education space. And then 2 years later, they come back and are like, okay, now we want to talk about it. And I think like what you did, or like what that is a perfect blend of like technical expertise, educational expertise, and real life application, right? So like how are you kind of as a leader in the business school, like how are you choosing like technology, right? Like AI solutions kind of while keeping your teachers in mind? I don't know if that's a good question.
That's a great question. And it really addresses the idea that IT and technology experts should not and really cannot come in and say, you as a faculty member have expertise in this content area, but we're going to tell you how you have to teach it. That's really not the approach to take. And we can't even say, well, this is the solution you must use in order to teach it. What we can do is take the needs and the expectations of the audience, the instructors and the students, and we can say, well, given your needs, these are the tools that fit those needs. This one may be better than that one, but here's what the pluses and minuses are. And then once that is adopted, then we say, okay, or accepted that we will do something, let's actually pilot, let's try it. We're going to take a tool that you are interested in trying, and we're going to implement it in a small, focused way in a specific instance. We're going to help you through that pilot by giving you all the resources and support that you need to be able to be successful. We're going to take the learning that we get from that pilot, from your students, from you as the instructor, and we're going to evaluate that tool again, given that feedback. And then if it becomes a solution that makes sense, then we can implement it more fully. And we can find other places where we can leverage that same implementation. So it's not about forcing a change. It's not about a technology driving how we teach, but it's saying, given the environment of teaching and given what we want to accomplish, here are tools that we think will fit that need. Let's try it. And if it does, then let's expand it. And then those faculty then become evangelists because they say, hey, I needed this solution. It worked for me. You should try it too. And that's the thing when you think about a lot of people talk about the technology adoption curve and they think about, the early adopters all the way
Yeah.
to the laggards. But there's a chasm there. And the chasm is from the people who are just willing to try anything to the people who are the moderates who are like, well, if you show me why it's good for me, then I might do it. But most of the time, that chasm is so hard to jump because the people who are on the bleeding edge, the people who are in the middle, they don't see themselves in that group. They're like, I am not one of those people who's just willing to jump off the cliff and see if it works. So then when you start getting those evangelists, those people are saying, yeah, I tried this and it works. Then other people like them are more likely to adopt because they say, I see myself in that person. I'm like that person. And that person, it worked for them. I think it might work for me. And so they're more willing to take that risk.
That's super cool. Uh, yeah, I love that answer. Sorry. I was just like, oh, that makes sense, right? Like you get someone to use it because as a technology person, like it's everyone, it's like I'm not going to listen to you. You don't know anything about what I'm talking about. But we're kind of coming up on time here. So two questions I ask every single person. The first one's kind of big and like don't feel like you need a perfect answer for this. If you could snap your fingers and change one thing about education, what would change after your fingers were snapped?
I love this question. This is such an awesome question. If I could snap my fingers and make something change, I would say to have every single person on the planet have access to a high quality education that is affordable for them and can help them to be successful in their future.
It's a great answer. I mean, yeah, that would be. I think we're getting there, right? With AI. I mean, if it's
Have the
done
potential.
correctly, I think there's a serious shot. And then last question, what's your favorite way to use AI outside of school? So like my favorite thing is I love to use it for cooking. I always
Oh,
helps
that's
with
cool.
recipes and stuff. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I just like playing with it. So my son is an EMT,
Yeah.
and this last weekend we sat down and we created a custom GPT that would help build scenarios for him and his peers to practice EMT
Cool.
scenarios. So I just like building stuff like that.
Well, yeah, that's super cool. That's so some funny ones I've heard. Coupons, that's the best one that I use all the time now. Like if you use GBT search to find coupons, it'll
Oh,
like
cool.
go find coupons for things. But Tawnya, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone listening. I will have Tanya's LinkedIn information in the bio of the video. Thank you for being here, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon.